Zetesque rants coming at you with some missed opportunities in Naruto. This applies to the original series, Shippuden, and Boruto. Why weren't Naruto and Konohamaru raised together? Or why weren't more leaf orphans raised in orphanages like Kabuto was? It likely would have been cheaper to have the children taken care of together rather than giving spending allowances to children. Having Sasuke join the orphanage at such an older age compared to Naruto and Konohamaru, who had been there since before they were much younger, could have sparked some interesting character development and given a better justification to their devotion to the village as well as Naruto's desire to be seen and respected by everyone. How did so many Hokage not notice the operations of the Foundation, despite using Foundation-raised Anbu shinobi? What happened after the Uchiha massacre to the crime rates in the Leaf? The Uchiha were chosen as the police force partially out of political power balance, but also partially because their visual prowess would be strong enough to overpower criminal shinobi. If the entire police force and an entire ghetto of the city is erased overnight, wouldn't there be criminals, drug addicts, and black markets moving into the empty real estate and taking advantage of the lack of consequences? What makes Naruto's shadow clones, learned from the Forbidden Scroll, different than standard shadow clones used by everyone else? Later in the series, shadow clones seem to be able to last a few seconds after being hit, instead of popping like a soap bubble as in the earlier episodes. Was this intentional to show how the entire world was progressing, like the forward march of technology? So much time was spent in flashbacks showing the honorable side of Itachi, but very little time was spent showing how he was able to hunt down the entire clan. Maybe they were massing to prepare for the coup d'état, or maybe he had to round up a few police force members who were on patrol on the other side of the village, or maybe a few genin or chunin who were out on missions at the time. If the story wanted to focus on Itachi, we could have seen an Akatsuki-style hunt down of the survivors. Speaking of Uchiha, Shin Uchiha, who is an artificial life-form experiment abandoned by Orochimaru. There were dozens of him, including one giant one, who were convinced to stand down and go to Kabuto's orphanage. Did anyone consider enrolling them in the Ninja Academy? Did anyone consider medically transplanting their eyes either before they started attacking, or after they landed in the orphanage? With medical ninjutsu of the time, they could have rotated eyes around and ended up with Mangekyo or even Rinnegan. If Rock Lee and Might Guy were mocked so much for being unable to use ninjutsu or genjutsu, then why were so few genin and chunin able to use genjutsu? It really seems like ninjutsu is given the spotlight too often compared to how they discuss the importance of all three. Why did it take 12 years for the Anbu to track down Jiraiya and Tsunade to ask them to be the 5th Hokage? Jiraiya mentioned that they had asked him before and he declined, which is why he offers to look for Tsunade, but why would they not have had a backup plan? Especially considering the 3rd Hokage had tried to retire and hand off the duties to Minato Namikaze as the 4th Hokage, and considering Danzo wanted to seize control of the village. Lord Third should have been more paranoid about assassination attempts, especially after Majino gets sent to assassinate him. What makes Hashirama Senju so special? Why can wood style only be used with his DNA, but other mixed styles like ice and lava and magnet can be used by non-genetically related people? Why did none of the other great nations attack after the Nine Tails incident? There were hints at this during Orochimaru's assault on the Leaf, which was much less destructive, but even that seemed to be orchestrated since he had assassinated the Kazekage weeks before the attack. Speaking of that attack, how did Gaara and his siblings not notice their father was killed and replaced after the Forest of Death and before the final rounds of the Chunin exams? The time gap was described to be more than a month, which indicates the genin would have returned to their home villages for a few weeks to train. If they did not, then why was that time skip glossed over? Why was Might Guy allowed to have students, knowing that he doesn't have ninjutsu or genjutsu? There are so many mentions of the Leaf being short-staffed, but also there are always plenty of nameless Jonin and Anbu whenever a big event happens. Which is it? Is Konoha a village on the brink of population collapse, or is it a booming city with tens of thousands of people? Neji, Tenten, and Rock Lee were not in the academy with Naruto and the others. They were a year older and only met during the Chunin exams, during which they only interacted for a few hours on a handful of days spread out over a month. Why then did they become so close friends and comrades? Where are all the people a year older than Neji? Or a year younger than Sakura? Especially after Sasuke left, and Naruto was being paired with whoever happened to be there at the time. It was as if that one class plus those three exceptions were the only genin and chunin in the village, except the eternal genin. Why did the ninja cats and other ninja animals not get recruited into service during Tsunade's reign of short-staffed struggling Konoha? Most of the main genin are said to belong to clans, and later we can see some of their relatives in the Fourth Great Ninja War and afterward, but where are the other children? Neji was the only side branch Hyuga we saw during the show, all the others were adults. Does Choji have any Akamichi cousins, or is the clan just a chain of single-child families? A big deal is made about the Ino Shika Cho formation and how it is handed down between the generations, but this is very reliant on children being born within a year of each other, maybe two if we're being generous. So if a generation only has one Akamichi child, one Yamanaka child, and one Nara child, what are the odds they would happen to be exactly the same age? Even the name of the formation implies that it was originally written as something that Shikamaru invented, and the tradition was retconned in. Someone help me out here if this is just a translation issue. Later on, we see dozens of Yamanaka clan members of varying ages, and a handful of older Akamichi members, but only ever one linear single-child line of the Nara. Why was the Sound Village allowed to participate in the Chunin exams, and how did no one recognize Orochimaru? Not even Anko, who later on is seen having curse mark pain when within a day's travel of him? If Orochimaru's curse mark really is just a distilled version of Jugo's Sage Mode, then what happened to the rest of Jugo's clan, and why do the other nations not have similar research ongoing? I'd expect at least the Blood Mist to use curse marks. From what I've understood, Naruto is supposed to mirror the Japanese history of rapid modernization during the end of the feudal era. The lore showing the Senju and Uchiha uniting disparate warring clans under a united banner fits well. I enjoy the themes of the more unique clans and tribes being wiped out by modernization. Kimimara's clan of berserkers getting defeated by more disciplined and trained shinobi, with Orochimaru acting like a Pokemon trainer collecting all the shiny and unique orphans left over. It makes a lot of sense, and is highlighted repeatedly by the smaller nations holding grudges on the large nations for making their homelands a battleground. If we were going to get more spin-off shows, a darker one might have Orochimaru as the protagonist, trying to balance all the spinning plates of his various labs and lairs, while trying to collect all the jutsu and prolong his own life. During the Fourth Great Ninja War, we learn that Orochimaru can be resurrected by combining a bit of his DNA with a curse mark he has implanted, meaning there are potentially thousands of people out there like Anko and the Sound Five. What would have happened if he left a vial of his blood at each prison location? When rumors started that he had been killed, Karen would not have hesitated to revive him using one of the prisoners under her care. What if other followers of his did similar in different locations? Would that result in more than one of him existing at the same time? When Obito's eye was transplanted into Kakashi, and then he and Rin returned to the village, how did the rest of the Uchiha clan react? Did they try to train him or adopt him? Did they try to assassinate him? This is another backstory which would have been interesting to see in the style that Itachi's story was told. Why did Lord Third not teach Asuma or Konohamaru how to summon the Monkey King or similar types of creatures? Why did Naruto not lead other people to Mount Miyoboku after the Fourth Great Ninja War? The story in Boruto makes it clear that the Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke spent the next 15 years searching for signs of the Otsutsuki that Kagaya was building the army to fight against. Knowing that they can't be harmed by ninjutsu or genjutsu, why didn't Sage Jutsu become a standard part of academy training? Why didn't Orochimaru teach Sasuke Snake Sage Jutsu? Kabuto learned it, and later Mitsuki, but not Sasuke. Without Naruto being able to share Sage Mode powers with Sasuke, he would have been useless against Kagaya. Orochimaru, being a former member of the Akatsuki, would have known what the plan was, or at least part of it, so should have been preparing for this. Why did Sasuke never accept the white Zetsu arm that they grew for him? It was ready before he left the village, but he declined, and continued to decline for 15 years afterwards. The Nine Tails chakra was split among so many different sources. It really seems like the gap between Nine Tails and the other 8 is larger than the gap between a baby and Shukaku the One Tails. The Gold and Silver brothers Kinkaku and Ginkaku had some of his chakra even after death. Then there was Sora, the monk child who was given some 9 tails chakra from the mist that Kurama kicked up burning the fight against Naruto's parents. Plus half of his chakra sealed in Minato's corpse with the Reaper Death Seal. And the remaining part sealed within Naruto. It is ambiguous how much of Naruto's chakra is due to Kurama and how much is his own. In the anime, red chakra indicates Kurama chakra, and blue indicates Naruto chakra. However, Naruto has significantly more blue chakra than anyone else on the planet. Why and how? My fan theory is that Kurama's chakra continually leaking out over his whole life acted sort of like blood doping. His chakra network was overflowing with more chakra than could fit, so the veins widened as they grew to compensate, and his heart, or whatever the swirly center of the chakra is supposed to be, grew stronger to be able to handle the increased flow. When Might Guy and Kakashi train rock climbing, it is hinted that your total chakra can be increased through physical exercise, and I suspect having Kurama's chakra flooding through him all the time acted like steroids, allowing Naruto's total chakra to increase faster than anyone else because his body would heal so fast. What if Karen had gotten to know Naruto after the 4th Great Ninja War and trained him how to use Uzumaki-style golden chain sealing? Does he have that Kekkei Genkei, or did he not inherit it from his mother? The Uchiha clan makes a big deal about awakening their Sharingan, and later in Boruto, there is similar interest in Himawari unlocking her Byakugan. How would a member of another clan be treated if they just didn't inherit their bloodline trait? An Akamichi clan member without expansion jutsu, who couldn't learn it with any training? Or an Inuzuka clan member born without a sense of smell? This theme is touched on with Sarada Uchiha in Boruto, when everyone assumes she knows medical ninjutsu, despite her being really bad at it, but it is treated like a throwaway topic. I know a lot of people have brought this up before, but in Boruto, during the Chunin exams, when a big deal is made about not using scientific ninja tools, people are still allowed to use puppets, and the exams are being overseen by Tenten. You know, Tenten, the one whose only ninjutsu is summoning ninja tools. Imagine being the guy at the desk in front of her when on screen Boruto is being disqualified from the exams for using the only thing that makes her a shinobi. Better yet, imagine telling Tamari she's disqualified for using ninja tools in the Chunin exams. Or the Sound Ninja with their gauntlets. What about the kunai with string attached, which allowed so many of the genin to escape the pit of ink in Boruto? Those are ninja tools too, just not new technology. If the Akatsuki had been attempting to collect the tailed beasts since before Naruto was born, including the manipulation and assassination of the 4th Mizukage, then why did it take them so long to get the first one, and how did they go so quickly afterwards? In teams of 2, they were planning to get 1 tailed beast per member. They could capture them in any order but could only do the sealing ritual in sequential order. It took nearly 20 years for them to finally get the 1 tails from the Sand Village, and then within 2 years after that they had all 9. Speaking of the Sand Jinchuriki, why didn't they grab Gaara while their village was distracted trying to find a new cage after Orochimaru's attack on the leaf? Gaara was freshly injured from the fight against Naruto, and they have had the Geto statue since before Obito was born, so it would make sense to strike while each Jinchuriki is weakest or least protected. They could have even gone for it before it was implanted in Gaara. The 4th Great Ninja War overall was a missed opportunity to kill off more named characters and trim down the cast to prepare for another time skip. We got a few tertiary characters killed off and returned as Kabuto soldiers, but I think Might Guy really deserved to go out in flames in that attack on Madara. When Pain killed Kakashi and Chosen, among others, I think that should have been kept permanent. If Pain could only resurrect one person with Rinne Rebirth, he obviously would have allowed Naruto to choose, and I think Naruto would have chosen Yahiko. Sure, this would have missed out on our later Obito and Kakashi reunion, but it would have given the audience more faith in the writing. Nothing undermines a narrative like a fake-out death. Speaking of resurrections, can any of the other Otsutsuki make things like Black Zetsu to continue on their consciousness and resurrect themselves? Is the karma meant to be like him? Naruto has always had issues with retcon storytelling, and at the time of writing, the latest retcon is the other Otsutsuki who accompanied Kagaya. Apparently now they always travel in pairs, with one having to sacrifice themselves to a 10 tails to create a tree with chakra fruit. Except, Kagaya didn't and her partner also didn't die, and somehow they still ended up with a tree. Her partner was badly injured, likely from her betrayal, and shrunk to invade the brain of a random passerby, who became Jigen. Then it took over 1,000 years to find a suitable host to resurrect, despite resurrection using karma being part of the general strategy of colonizing new planets. What do? They find a planet with no suitable hosts. What about Momoshiki, who ate his partner? Despite there being a 10 tails ready and available for this planet, they didn't use it or communicate with Jigen. Enough about aliens, what about the feudal lords? With the various cage positions being turned into more desk jobs and political figureheads, and with the feudal lords allowing cross-nation cooperation during the Fourth Great Ninja War, why had there been no major political changes in the years since? In context, there are still people alive who knew the first Hokage during the Fourth Great Ninja War, which means they are older than the ninja villages. Imagine if the medieval ages were followed directly by the War of 1812, then World War I and II. Then some crazy guy unleashes an army of Terminators on Europe and nukes a few of the capital cities of Western Europe. All within about 80 years. Onoki the fence-sitter was already old enough to be a soldier in the First Great Ninja War, and was still able to fight during the Fourth, and the First Great Ninja War appears to be not too long after the founding of the first ninja village, maybe around the time he was born. It took significantly less than that to create the UN and EU in real life, but nothing of the type is seen in Naruto or Boruto. Do the villages predate the nations? It seems so, based on Hashirama's story, but perhaps that was misleading. Perhaps it was just the uncontrolled outskirts of the nations who had the freedom to wage their own wars and found their own villages without having to pay taxes or deal with the feudal lords. I really like how some of the shinobi learn new skills or ninjutsu during time skips, but I'm disappointed with how little others progress. In the time it takes Sakura to train her punch to be as strong as Tsunade's, Kiba makes a third head on his two-headed dog attack. In the time it takes Ino to learn how to act like a Zoom call, Sasuke hasn't learned any new Rinnegan techniques that he didn't already know a few days after getting it. The lack of genjutsu among the Leaf Jonin makes it seem like it should be treated like a bloodline trait instead of like 1/3 of the definition of shinobi. The lack of summoning jutsu after Shino went out of his way to teach the new generation of genin is disappointing. I'm surprised no one noticed Jiraiya's chakra signature on Ino's scanning network when his clone showed up. And I guess the chakra signatures of his summoning frogs were also in the database to prevent an alarm. Why does Jiraiya's clone not look like him? He famously has shoulders and ribs as wide as 3 regular people, and being younger should have been taller than old Jiraiya, not shorter, but his clone looks like it could pass as a silhouette of adult Konohamaru. Wouldn't it have been cool if some of the toads from Mount Myoboku showed up when Boruto was a baby to tell Naruto, "Hey boss, some of our guys have been getting summoned away by this guy in a mask, but we checked the summoning contract and no new names have been added. You might want to check up on this guy." No list of complaints about Boruto would be complete without mourning the loss of the Hinata's chest, which was already prominent enough to get Naruto's attention from across the room at age 12, and was even bigger at age 16, and now should have 2 children worth of growth, but sadly appears to be smaller than when she was 12. If you like this, let me know by liking and subscribing. If this video gets enough likes, I'll post some hypotheticals or fanfics like what would have happened if Pain didn't resurrect Kakashi.